I know someone who just put $100,000 into a crypto protocol. Not Bitcoin, not Ethereum. A decentralized exchange farming points that might be worth something, or might be worth nothing. He's 32 years old, makes $140,000 a year, has a degree from a good school, works at a major tech company. By every conventional measure, he's winning. He's in the top 10% of earners for his age, and he just bet $100,000 on what is essentially a lottery ticket. When I asked him why, he looked at me like I was stupid. What else am I gonna do? Save for 20 years and buy a condo when I'm 55? Assuming my job still exists. Assuming condos are still affordable. Assuming AI hasn't made my entire career obsolete. He wasn't being reckless. He was being rational. And he's not alone. Right now, there are millions of people your age making the same calculation. They're betting their rent money on meme coins. They're grinding 80 hours a week learning crypto trading. They're putting every spare dollar into prediction markets, sports betting, NFTs, anything with a moonshot possibility. The financial establishment looks at this and says, irresponsible, gambling addiction, financial illiteracy. They're wrong. What you're witnessing isn't a generation gone crazy. It's a generation responding rationally to a system that locked them out. My name is Jordan Hayes, and I spent the last 5 years watching the traditional path to wealth collapse in real time while a new casino economy emerged to fill the void. Today, I'm going to show you why your generation can't afford to be patient anymore. Why the people telling you to just work hard and save are speaking from a position of privilege they don't even recognize. And why the biggest investment opportunity of the next decade isn't in what people are betting on, it's in the platforms taking rake from their desperation. This is the story of financial mediocrity, invisible prisons, and why an entire generation chose the casino over the career ladder. If you're under 40 and you've ever felt like the traditional path doesn't work anymore, you need to watch every second of this video. Because what I'm about to tell you will either save you from financial suicide, or show you exactly how to profit from the greatest wealth transfer in modern history. Subscribe right now. This is going to get uncomfortable. Part 1. The invisible prison, why the ladder got pulled up. Let me start with a number that should make you furious. Baby boomers hold 50% of all wealth in America. They represent 20% of the population. Millennials hold 10% of all wealth in America. They also represent 20% of the population. Let me say that again. Same population share. 5 times less wealth. This isn't because millennials are lazy. It's not because they spend too much on avocado toast. It's because the game fundamentally changed and nobody told them the old rules don't work anymore. The traditional bargain is dead. Here's what the deal used to be. Get a degree. Get a job at a good company. Show up, work hard, stay loyal. Get promoted based on tenure. Retire with a pension. Your house appreciates while you sleep. Your kids inherit wealth and continue the cycle. That's the ladder. That's the path your parents took. That's what guidance counselors and career advisors still tell you to follow. Here's the problem. Every single rung of that ladder is broken. The math that doesn't work anymore. Let's look at what happened to the traditional path. 1978 to 1985, baby boomer entering workforce. Average starting salary, $16,000 per year. Average house price, $55,000. House-to-income ratio, 3.4x. College tuition, 4 years, $10,000. Strategy. Work at one company for 30 years, get pension, retire at 60 with house paid off. 2010 to 2025, Millennial/Gen Z entering workforce. Average starting salary, $55,000 per year. Average house price, $420,000. House-to-income ratio, 7.6x. College tuition, 4 years, $100,000 plus, with debt. Pensions, basically extinct. Strategy? Let me break down what actually happened. Wages, up 8% after inflation since 1980. Housing costs, up 100% after inflation since 1980. Education costs, up 180% after inflation since 1980. Healthcare costs, up 150% after inflation since 1980. The traditional path tells you to save 10 to 15% of your income, invest conservatively, and in 30 years you'll be comfortable. Let's run the math on a typical millennial. Age 28. Salary, $60,000 per year, $45,000 after tax. Savings rate, 15% equals $6,750 per year. Investment return, 7% annually, historical stock market average. At age 58, 30 years later, they'll have $612,000. Sounds good, right? Now factor in. Inflation at 3% annually equals $612,000 in today's dollars is worth $252,000. Average house price in 2055, estimated $850,000 plus. They still can't afford to retire and buy a house. The math doesn't work. The patient path leads nowhere. The loyalty penalty. Here's something your parents don't understand. Staying at one company for 20 years is now a career liability, not an asset. Data from 2024. Employees who stay at one company for 10 plus years earn 50% less than job hoppers. Average annual raise for staying, 3%. Average salary increase for switching jobs, 15 to 20%. The system now punishes loyalty. Your grandfather stayed at Ford for 35 years and retired with a pension. You stay at any company for 5 years and you're unmotivated and not ambitious. The deal changed, but nobody updated the playbook. The asset inflation trap. Here's the cruelest part. The people who already owned assets got rich doing nothing. If you bought a house in 1980 for $80,000, you paid it off by 2010. It's now worth $450,000. You made $370,000 by just existing. If you're trying to buy a house in 2025, you need an $84,000 down payment, 20%. Your mortgage payment is $2,800 per month. That's 63% of the median millennial take-home pay. The boomers didn't plan this. Asset price inflation just happened to benefit those who already owned assets. But the effect is the same. The ladder got pulled up. And now you're told to just save more in an economy where housing costs doubled, wages stagnated, and the basic building blocks of middle-class life became luxury items. My friend Michael's story. Let me tell you about Michael. He's 34, works in marketing, makes $75,000 per year, lives in Austin. He did everything right. Got a degree in business, worked his way up from intern to manager, saved 10% of his income religiously for 8 years, has $42,000 in his 401k, has $18,000 in savings. Last year he tried to buy a house. Nothing fancy. A modest 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. Minimum down payment needed, $60,000, 15% to avoid PMI on a $400,000 house. He's $42,000 short, after saving for 8 years. At his current savings rate, he'll have enough for a down payment in 2031. He'll be 40 years old. But here's the kicker. Housing prices in Austin have gone up 7% annually for the last decade. If that continues, by 2031, that same house will cost $620,000. He'll need $93,000 down. He's saving as fast as he can, but the finish line is moving faster. Michael is running on a treadmill that's speeding up. He's doing everything the responsible advice says to do. And he's falling further behind every year. So 6 months ago, Michael put $15,000 into a crypto project. It went to zero. 2 months ago, he put another $10,000 into a different project. It 5x'd. He sold at $50,000. He now has more in his crypto account than in his 401k, despite saving in his 401k for 8 years and crypto for 6 months. Is Michael being irresponsible? Or is Michael being rational? The timeline compression. Here's where it gets worse. Not only is the traditional path not working, the timeline to make it work is shrinking. AI is coming for white-collar jobs. Not in 20 years. No. ChatGPT writes better marketing copy than most junior marketers. Midjourney produces better visuals than entry-level designers. Claude and Cursor write code that passes professional review. AI assistants handle customer service, data entry, basic analysis. Every month, AI benchmarks improve. Every quarter, more jobs become automatable. The anxiety isn't hypothetical anymore. Every white-collar worker has done the mental exercise. Could AI do my job? When? And most don't love their answers. 3 years ago, AI will replace knowledge workers, was a thought experiment. Today it's a planning assumption. The question isn't if, it's when. So you have a generation that can't afford traditional milestones through traditional means. Believes the traditional path might evaporate before they reach the destination. Has maybe 5 to 10 years before AI disrupts their industry. Can see the life they want but can't construct a realistic path to get there. Taking shots now while the money and opportunity still exist isn't reckless. It's the only rational response to impossible odds. Part 2. The Maslow Trap, Why Survival Isn't Enough Anymore. Here's something nobody talks about. This generation isn't desperate. That's actually the problem. Let me explain. The bottom tiers are solved. Previous generations facing economic constraint had a different problem. When you're worried about eating, you don't have bandwidth for existential questions. If you're a factory worker in 1950 and you lose your job, you might starve. You might become homeless. Your kids might not eat. That fear makes you accept any deal. You take the stable job. You stay quiet. You don't rock the boat, because the boat is keeping you alive. This generation doesn't have that distraction. Modern society has mostly solved the bottom tiers of Maslow's hierarchy. Food is cheap. You can eat for $5 per day. Basic shelter exists. You can rent a room, crash with roommates. Safety nets exist. Unemployment, Medicaid, food stamps. Baseline employment is accessible. You can always get some job. You're not fighting for survival. You're fighting for a life worth living. And that's when things get dangerous. When survival is handled, humans reach for the next tier. Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Tier 1 to 2, physiological and safety, food, shelter, health. White heavy checkmark, mostly handled in developed countries. Tier 3, belonging, relationships, community, roots. Blocked, can't afford to settle down, buy a house, feel stable. Tier 4, esteem, achievement, status, feeling valuable. Blocked, career progression is a joke, promotions arbitrary, success feels random. Tier 5, self-actualization, purpose, creativity, peak experiences. Blocked, no time, no money, no freedom to pursue meaning. You have food. You have shelter. But you don't have belonging, esteem, or self-actualization. And the traditional paths to those higher needs, home ownership, career progression, financial security, are exactly what's been blocked. This generation can survive but can't get anywhere. And that cognitive dissonance is unbearable. The frustration engine. Previous generations had a simple equation. Suffer now equals reward later. The suffering made sense because the reward was guaranteed. Your grandfather worked in a coal mine for 30 years. It sucked. But he knew that at the end, he'd have a pension, a paid-off house, and grandkids who'd inherit wealth. The suffering had meaning because the destination was real. This generation has. Suffer now equals maybe reward later, maybe not, probably not. The suffering doesn't make sense because the reward isn't guaranteed. You're told to spend $100,000 on a degree that might be obsolete. Work 50 hours a week at a job that might be automated. Save for 30 years to buy a house that might be unaffordable by then. Stay loyal to a company that will lay you off the moment it's convenient. The suffering has no meaning because the destination is a mirage. When you can survive but can't get anywhere, something breaks. The cognitive bandwidth that would have gone to survival instead goes to frustration, searching, looking for any path that might lead somewhere. The social media acceleration. And then there's social media, which ensures you never feel like you have enough. The algorithm is optimized to show you the next tranche of what could be. Always the vacation you haven't taken, the apartment you can't afford, the lifestyle one rung above yours. Previous generations had limited visibility into how others lived. You compared yourself to your neighbors, your coworkers, maybe some celebrities in magazines. The reference class was narrow. Now the reference class is infinite. A 25-year-old making $70,000 per year is constantly fed content from people their age, making $2 million per year, living in Bali, working 4 hours a day, traveling constantly, looking phenomenally happy. The baseline for enough keeps moving. You never catch up. No matter what you achieve, social media will show you what you're missing. The spread between your life and the life you should have is maintained algorithmically, forever uncollapsible. The reposition zero line. Here's the psychological trap. Objectively, a 28-year-old making $65,000 per year is doing fine by historical standards. Better than 90% of humans who ever lived. But subjectively, that same person feels poor. Because they can see friends buying houses with family money, influencers with luxury apartments paid for by brands, crypto winners retiring at 25, survivorship bias, tech founders raising millions, you only see the winners. Your brain doesn't process, I'm in the top 10% globally. Your brain processes, I'm in the bottom 50% of my reference class. The zero line has been repositioned. It's why you see unironic takes like, the poverty line is $150,000. This generation isn't gambling to survive. They're gambling to escape a life that feels like losing, even when objectively they're not. Part 3, Agency in the Casino, Why They Gamble Instead of Grind. Now we get to the part that confuses everyone over 40. Why would someone who can't afford to gamble spend months learning crypto trading? Why would someone who should be building their career bet their rent money on a meme coin? Why would someone dismiss traditional investing as rigged, but fully embrace prediction markets? The answer is simple. The casino is the only place they feel agency. The traditional career path, zero agency. Let me show you what grinding at your job actually looks like in 2025. You get hired at a company. You work hard. You hit your metrics. You do everything right. Then, your manager gets promoted because they were there first, not because they're good. Your coworker who's friends with the VP gets the role you deserved. Your entire department gets restructured and your progress resets. The company gets acquired and half the staff gets laid off. AI automates your role and you're redundant. At no point in this process did your effort, skill, or dedication matter. You were a passenger on a ride controlled by forces completely outside your control. You had zero agency. Your decisions didn't determine your outcome. The stock market, fake agency. Just invest in index funds, they say. You'll earn 10% annually. In 30 years you'll be rich. Okay, let's run the numbers. You're 25 years old. You invest $500 per month into the S&P 500. At age 55, 30 years later, with 10% annual returns, you'll have $987,000. Adjusted for 3% inflation, $406,000 in today's money. Congratulations. You can now afford a down payment on a house in a decent neighborhood. At age 55, after working for 30 years. This is what they call winning. Meanwhile, your friend who bet $10,000 on a crypto project in 2020 turned it into $400,000 in 18 months. Same outcome. One took 30 years of patient grinding. The other took 18 months of conviction. Which path feels like you had agency? The casino, real agency, or at least it feels like it. Now let's talk about what happens when someone enters crypto, prediction markets, sports betting, or any other casino activity. Suddenly, your research actually matters. Your decisions directly impact your results. Conviction pays off immediately or punishes you immediately. There's no manager to credit steal. There's no AI that can replace your edge. Your intelligence, pattern recognition, and risk management determine everything. Even if the edge is imagined, it feels yours. Not something you're waiting for someone to grant you. I watched a friend spend 6 months learning technical analysis, order flow, on-chain analytics, and trading psychology. He put in 60 to 80 hours a week. He studied like his life depended on it. His parents told him, "You should spend that time getting better at your job." Here's the thing, he was willing to grind for crypto. He wasn't willing to grind for his job. What? Because in crypto his effort mattered. At his job, his effort was invisible. The house edge doesn't matter. Here's what critics don't understand. The gamblers know the odds are bad. They understand. Most traders lose money. Most meme coins go to zero. Most prediction markets have negative expected value. The house takes rake on every transaction. They're not stupid. They're not financially illiterate. They're making a different calculation. Let me show you the math they're actually doing. Option A, traditional path. Expected value, definitely stuck in mediocrity. Timeline, 30 years. Outcome, maybe afford a house at 55 assuming nothing goes wrong. Agency, zero. Option B, casino path. Expected value, probably lose but small chance of escape. Timeline, 1 to 5 years. Outcome, either break free or back to square one. Agency, high. When your baseline is treading water forever, a 5% chance of escaping starts looking mathematically attractive against a 100% chance of staying stuck. This isn't financial illiteracy. It's revealed preference under constraint. The privilege of telling people not to gamble. Here's what makes me angry. The people preaching gambling is bad, you should stop, are almost always speaking from a position of financial privilege. They already own a house, bought when it was affordable, have career stability in industries not threatened by AI yet, have wealth accumulation, benefited from the longest bull market in history, can see a clear path to retirement. They see a way out. They see a path. So they espouse the goodness of staying the course. For the financially imprisoned, gambling is salvation. And when you tell them to stop, you're literally telling them to accept eternal damnation. That's why your well-intentioned advice falls on deaf ears. You're standing on the shore telling drowning people to stop thrashing. Meanwhile, they can see a lifeboat 50 feet away with a 10% chance of reaching it, or 100% certainty of drowning if they stay put. What would you choose? Part 4. The numbers. How big is this casino economy? Okay. Now that you understand why this is happening, let me show you how big it's gotten. Prediction markets, vertical growth. Polymarket and Kalshare combined volume. November 2024, $10 billion plus. Annual run rate, $40+ billion. 2020, essentially $0. This market didn't exist 5 years ago. Now it's processing tens of billions in volume. Polymarket just raised at an $8 to $10 billion valuation. For a company that's 3 years old. Sports betting, the explosion. Legal sports betting revenue. 2017, $248 million. 2024, $13.7 billion. That's a 5,427% increase in 7 years. Who's betting? Gen Z and Millennials, 76% of all betting activity. Activity growth year over year, 7% for both cohorts. This isn't slowing down. It's accelerating. Crypto, the OG casino. Cryptocurrency trading volume. 2020, $2 trillion annually. 2024, $30+ trillion annually. Who's trading? 18 to 34 age group, 63% of crypto owners. Median age of crypto investor, 31. The demographics tell the story. TransUnion did a study on these speculators. Here's the profile. Urban renters, heavy users of crypto apps, concentrated in mobile trading platforms. Average age, 28 to 34. Income, $50,000 to $100,000, not poor, not rich, locked in the middle. These aren't desperate poor people gambling their last dollar. These are middle-class knowledge workers who've done the math and realized the traditional path doesn't work. The money flow. Let me show you where the money is going. Traditional investing, index funds, 401(k)s. Inflows from under 40 age group, declining 3% year over year. Alternative platforms, crypto, prediction markets, sports betting. Inflows from under 40 age group, growing 40% plus year over year. The money is flowing away from traditional wealth building and into high-variance lottery tickets. This isn't a fad. This is a structural shift. Part 5. Long degeneracy, the investment thesis. All right, now we get to the part that makes money. If everything I've said is true, that a generation of economically locked out young people will continue seeking agency through high-variance financial products, then where do you put your money? The answer is simple. You go long the platforms, not the players. The house always wins. Here's the fundamental insight. The platforms win regardless of whether the users win. Polymarket doesn't care if your prediction is right. Coinbase doesn't care if your crypto goes up. DraftKings doesn't care if you win your bet. They extract fees from activity. And activity is growing. The players might lose, but the house never does. Where to invest? The long degeneracy portfolio. 1. Prediction market platforms. Polymarket, private, but recently raised at $8 to $10 billion valuation. Kalshare, recently raised $50 million Series B. Robinhood, public, expanding into prediction markets. Why they win? Take 2 to 5% rake on every trade. Volume growing 200% plus year over year. Regulatory moat, hard for competitors to get licensed. Winner take most dynamics. 2. Sports betting operators. DraftKings, Dikenge. Flutter owns FanDuel. Penn Entertainment, Penn. Why they win? Legal sports betting still rolling out state by state. Gen Z/millennial adoption is 76% and growing. Average revenue per user, ARPU, increasing as users get more sophisticated. Lifetime value, LTV, of a sports bettor is $3,000 to $5,000. 3. Crypto infrastructure. Not the coins. The infrastructure that profits from people trading the coins. Coinbase, Coin, U.S. exchange, compliance focused. Robinhood, Hood, crypto trading for retail. Galaxy Digital, GLXY, crypto merchant bank. Why they win? Make money on trading volume, up or down doesn't matter. Staking and custody fees. Every new speculative wave brings new users. Institutional adoption growing, adding legitimacy. 4. The escape the 9 to 5 industrial complex. The entrepreneurship casino is massive and growing. Platforms that win. Shopify, Shop, powers millions of dropshipping dreams. Substack, enables course creators, gurus, influencers. Gumroad, sells digital products, courses, templates, guides. Discord/Twitter/X, where communities form around alpha. Why they win? Start your own business is the socially acceptable lottery ticket. Feels productive and agentic even though most businesses fail. Every failed entrepreneur tries again with a new platform. Creator economy is $100+ billion and growing. 5. Social trading and community. Bloomberg Terminal Alternatives, trade ideas, signals, community. TradingView charting and social trading. Twitter/X Premium, access to alpha accounts. Discord/Telegram communities, paid access to trading groups. Why they win. Attention is there. Willingness to pay for alpha is high. Monthly recurring revenue, MRR, from subscriptions. Lower capital requirements than starting a platform. The asymmetric bet. Here's the beautiful part. You're not betting that individual speculators win. You're betting that the phenomenon persists. That the underlying economic conditions driving young people toward high-variance bets don't change. And given what we know about AI acceleration, housing costs, wealth distribution, generational economics, does this seem like a temporary thing? Or does it seem like a structural shift that will define the next 20 years? Risk management. I'm not telling you to YOLO into DraftKings stock. Here's the smart way to play this. Portfolio allocation. 60% traditional investments, index funds, real estate, boring stuff. 30% growth stocks with exposure to this trend. 10% high-risk/high-reward bets on emerging platforms. Within the 30% growth allocation, 40% public companies, coin, hood, shop. 40% private pre-IPO exposure, if you have access. 20% thematic ETFs or baskets. Within the 10% high-risk allocation, direct bets on crypto projects, angel investments in early platforms, speculation on emerging trends. This way you get exposure to the thesis without betting your life on it. The meta casino. Here's the ironic twist. The smartest way to play the degeneracy trend is to invest in the platforms that profit from degeneracy. You're essentially running a casino for the people running to the casino. It's degeneracy all the way down. And if you're going to be part of the system, you might as well be the house. Part 6. The moral dimension. Should you feel bad about this? Let's address the elephant in the room. Is it ethical to profit from desperate people gambling their futures away? The uncomfortable truth. This thesis is descriptive, not prescriptive. I'm not celebrating the fact that a generation seeks financial salvation through lottery tickets. I'm not rooting for people to lose money on meme coins. Watching millions of young people feel like gambling is their only path to agency is a symptom of something deeply broken. The house wins. Most players lose. That's the reality. But understanding what's happening lets you position for it financially. Reflect on it philosophically. Decide if you want to participate. The historical precedent. Casinos have existed in every era, and they've always profited from desperation. 1930s, lottery tickets during the Depression. 1980s, state lotteries targeting working-class communities. 2000s, payday loans and check-cashing services. 2010s, daily fantasy sports. 2020s, crypto prediction markets, sports betting apps. The desperation is real, documented, and growing. The platforms are just meeting demand. They're providing what people want, even if what people want is driven by economic conditions outside their control. You can moralize about this, or you can be long the platforms. The participant's dilemma. If you're going to gamble, and statistically if you're under 35 you probably are or will, you need to understand something. This is not a game. This is your life. If you're going to wager with your financial future on the line, you need to give yourself the best chance to win. That means, educate yourself obsessively. Understand probability and expected value. Risk only what you can afford to lose. Have an edge, real or perceived. Know when to walk away. Most people don't do this. They gamble emotionally. They chase losses. They bet without edge. If you're going to play, be very, very good. Because the house is excellent. The alternative path. I'm not saying gambling is the only way out. There are people who built careers in emerging industries, AI, clean energy, biotech. Started businesses that succeeded. Made strategic career moves that paid off. Got lucky with timing. But these people are rare. And getting rarer. For every person who made it through the traditional path, there are 100 who did everything right and still ended up stuck. The traditional advice, just work hard and be patient, works for maybe 5% of people in this generation. The other 95% need a different strategy. My position. Here's where I land. The system is broken. The traditional path doesn't work for most people. And telling them to keep grinding when the math doesn't support it is cruel. But the casino isn't a solution. It's a symptom. The real solution would be, fix housing costs, make education affordable, update the tax structure for generational wealth transfer, Regulate AI's impact on labor markets. Rebuild paths to middle-class stability. But none of that is happening. At least not fast enough. So in the meantime, people will continue flooding into the casino. And the platforms will continue taking rake. You can participate as the house, participate as a player, or sit it out and watch. But you can't ignore it. The final story, one must imagine Sisyphus filling out his 401st lottery ticket. Let me end with the guy I mentioned at the beginning. The one who put $100,000 into crypto farming. 3 weeks after he made that bet, the protocol collapsed. Exit scam. Rug pull. Whatever you want to call it. He lost $100,000 in a week. I called him. Asked if he was okay. He laughed. Yeah, I'm fine. It's not like I was going to retire on that money anyway. 2 days later, he sent me a message. Found a new protocol. Looks promising. Putting in $50,000. He's not addicted. He's not delusional. He just doesn't see an alternative. He's 32 years old. He makes good money. He has skills. He's intelligent. And he's willing to bet everything over and over because the alternative, saving for 20 years to buy a condo when he's 55, feels worse than losing. That's the generation. That's the invisible prison. They're not gambling because they're reckless. They're gambling because the traditional path closed, the timeline compressed, and the casino is the only door that's still open. One must imagine Sisyphus filling out his 401st lottery ticket. Not because he thinks this one will win, but because rolling the boulder up the hill forever wasn't working either. What now? If you're under 35 and this resonates, here's what you do. Option 1. Be the house. Invest in platforms that profit from this trend. Learn to build products that serve this market. Position yourself to take rake, not risk. Option 2. Be a very good player. If you're going to gamble, be excellent at it. Develop real edges, not imagined ones. Risk management above all. Know when to walk away. Option 3. Build an alternative path. Find industries not threatened by AI yet. Build skills that compound. Create optionality through multiple income streams. Accept slower progress but lower risk. There's no right answer. Only trade-offs. But whatever you do, don't let anyone from a privileged position tell you to just be patient and work hard. The math doesn't support patience anymore. And if you're going to make bets, make informed ones. Subscribe to this channel. Over the next few months, I'm going to break down which platforms are actually profitable versus hype, how to evaluate risk in high-variance plays, what the casino economy looks like in 5 years, how to protect yourself if you're playing. This is the greatest wealth transfer in modern history. You can be on the right side of it or the wrong side of it, but you can't pretend it's not happening. Long degeneracy.